7 friends go for a vacation, but only 6 come back safe and sound. This might sound like the tagline for a horror film, but what happened was far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Shanquella Robinson's case seems to be one of betrayal after the other, and there is plenty of evidence to get her justice. So why haven't her killers been caught yet? Let's do some digging. For anyone who isn't aware, Shanquella Robinson was a Charlotte woman who worked as a hair braider. She was described by her friends as a strong and brilliant woman, and in fact, she was the best that the woman had to offer. She was an entrepreneur who ran her own boutique named the Exquisite Boutique. But she was more than a businesswoman. She wanted to help people as well. She had a startup named Exquisite Kids, which was meant to encourage children to love their natural hair because that's just the sort of person Shanquella was. She wanted everyone around her to feel loved. By all means, she had a long and fulfilling life ahead of her, but then she decided to trust the wrong people. On October 28, 2022, she decided to take a vacation to Cabo, Mexico, with a friend and 5 travel companions. Cabo is a resort city on the southern end of Mexico, at the tip of the Baja California Peninsula. This seemed like a regularly scheduled trip, and they had no reason to worry, especially because her friend Khalil was with her. Khalil Cook was someone she met in college, and was close enough that he had even been invited to multiple family vacations. He was that close to her, so when he introduced her to the rest of the Cabo 6, there was no reason to worry, even if she didn't really know these people that well. As soon as the group arrived at the villa, Shanquella immediately called her mother. She was beyond excited. Why wouldn't she be? There was a private jet, a jacuzzi. They were living like royalty. That night, Khalil posted a video in which he was filming Shanquella sleeping in a hammock, saying that they had just found their first body. This seemed like harmless ribbing between friends, but sadly, this seemingly harmless comment would turn into foreshadowing for the horrific events about to take place. By the next day, warning sirens had well and truly started going off. The next day, she would post a casual video of herself going from room to room in the villa, looking for her friends, saying it doesn't take that long to get naked. This video has been taken by internet people and analyzed and reanalyzed until there was nothing left. When she goes into the room, it feels like there's an energy shift. It feels like they were talking about her before she reached there. Were they planning what was going to happen next? Was the whole point of inviting her to Mexico to kill her? We don't know if Shanquella noticed something was off at that point. As we've said, she was a very trusting individual, but knowing what we know now, it's hard not to think about what they were planning in that room. The next day, around 5 p.m., Khalil was the one to call her mom instead. He informed Salamandra that Shanquella was not feeling well and that she had alcohol poisoning. It seemed normal, maybe even a fun time. After all, maybe Shanquella just partied a little too hard, right? When he would place the next call, he would tell them that she was dead. In the phone call, he seemed cold, as if detached from the conversation. But things took a turn for the worse when the autopsy revealed that she had died from a broken neck and spine. There were friction burns along her ankle, contusions on her head, and that there were signs that someone had tried CPR to resuscitate her. There was no mention of alcohol poisoning anywhere. As of right now, a warrant had been issued to a woman named Dejane Jackson by the Mexican law enforcement. With a very limited evidence and lack of witnesses, this seems to be the best bet of the prosecution. Here's what the authorities have been able to piece together so far. According to the villa concierge who was translating for the group, Jackson was also the one who made all the arrangements for the group. He also mentioned that he had noticed since the first day that something was off. At 1:30, Jackson texted the concierge to ask if he knew where the nearest medical service was and if he was available at the time. He offered to send a doctor, but she later told him that Shanquella wasn't in serious trouble and that all she needed was an IV. The doctor arrived about 2 p.m. and according to the police report, he had wanted to take her to the hospital, but her friends insisted that she should be treated there. His hands were tied. He gave the victim an IV and about an hour later, she started having convulsions. Right after that, the concierge got a call that Robinson had died, and he immediately made his way to the villa. At 5:57 p.m. the same day, Shanquella Robinson was declared dead, miles away from her home and in another country. country. When he got back to the villa, Jackson asked him to give her a hug, which he described as cold. When he left the room, he heard laughter from inside. Hours later, she texted him to ask for dinner, and he told Jackson that he had arranged for a ride to San Jose, but was told that the group had already left for the airport. The next day, on October 31st, Jackson told him that they were back in the US. Shanquella's body was returned to the US on November 12th, and her funeral service was held on November 19th in a church in North Carolina. But her family had not found peace yet. 3 days later, a video went viral on the internet that showed someone beating Shanquella. And this wasn't just a fight between friends that had turned physical. This was something that can only be described as torture. The person was throwing her to the ground and punching her close-fisted all over her body and head. From behind the camera, we can hear Khalil saying, "Quella, can you at least fight back?" What's even worse is that Shanquella is completely nude in this video. When this video of Shanquella suffering at the hands of these monsters leaked to the internet, the concierge realized Jackson had been pretending, and that she had manipulated him to leave the country as soon as possible. The Cabo Six had seemingly gotten away with the murder of a bright soul and an innocent girl who just wanted to have a fun time. It's sad to say that Shanquella and her family still have not gotten justice. In March, more than 4 months after the day of, Shanquella's family and her attorney, Ben Crump, claimed that the Mexican authorities had gone through the proper channels for extradition, but they were disappointed that the U.S. authorities had made no arrests. Crump and Shanquella Robinson, Shanquella's other attorney, have written a letter to the White House where they have named Dejane Jackson as their prime suspect, according to evidence Sue-Ann found from her trip to Mexico. Sue-Ann even said it herself. Never in a million years did she imagine that she would have to travel to another country to find evidence about a case. The two lawyers have requested the government to either collaborate with the Mexican authorities to enforce extradition protocols so that they can be locked up in Mexico, or to bring the case fully to the US, as all parties involved are US citizens. The lawyers are expecting to meet with the White House, which is finally planning to take some action and move the case forward, even though previously the government representatives had pointed out that they do not comment on extradition matters. Earlier, Shanquella's attorneys, activists, and her family had gathered in D.C. to demand diplomatic intervention. According to the Robinson family, if there is no action taken in 200 days, they will perform even more demonstrations in front of the White House. Meanwhile, all of the Cabo Six have had their social media deactivated. It seems their reaction to the case is to pretend the incidents never happened at all. If they are responsible for what happened, then we hope they get put behind bars soon. It should not take nearly 5 months for justice to be served. We have to move forward with the case so that justice delayed does not become justice denied. And while we await the authorities to take some action, the world watches on. We can only hope that the family finds any peace that they can.